Good morning, everyone. Dan Bates, President and CEO of the Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce, and we are really happy you could join us this morning. We'll be introducing our speakers in just a moment. Let me tell you the protocol. Obviously, we're on Zoom. If you have questions of the speakers, you can either type them in the chat box or just interrupt them. I'm sure they will be fine with that. If you are on Facebook Live, you can type your questions in and Tiffany will repeat them to the speaker so you can get your questions answered. This will later go on our YouTube channel. So if there's something you missed or you want to share it with somebody, you can always go back and take a look at it at YouTube. We are thrilled that you could join us. So we're going to be hearing from Chris and Lisa, they are going to be talking about giving you a roadmap to risk and how to avoid a dead end. So it sounds pretty scary to me. And they are both from Taylor Oswald, and we're thrilled they could be with us today. Do we need to worry about self-introductions, or do we want to get right into it this morning?
Well, we could probably do a couple introductions. People might want to know who we are.
Hand it over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Laura Merrill with the Greater Hamilton Chamber. Glad you could join us today. Chris Cannell, would you like to tell us who you are and what you do?
Chris Cannell. I'm the coordinator of community outreach and alumni relations for the Hamilton City Schools.
Glad to have you with us. And Tiffany?
I am Tiffany Grubb, Director of Membership and Marketing at the Greater Hamilton Chamber.
All right, Chris and Lisa, we'll let you do some introductions and take it away.
All right, great. Good morning. My name is Chris Owens. I am a risk advisor with Taylor Oswald. We're a minority-owned risk management and insurance firm, partner with the Oswald companies. I am based here in Cincinnati in Northern Kentucky. And Lisa.
Good morning, everyone. Lisa Pape. I'm the Director of Claims Consulting for Oswald Companies. We are a dedicated team that services our clients and providing claims oversights on matters that are submitted for claims under their insurance coverages that are brokered through Oswald Companies and Taylor Oswald. I'm in the Detroit area. However, we provide claims oversight for all of our clients throughout Michigan and Ohio.
All right, so let's get started and let's talk about insurance and risk, which I know that's a fun topic on a Tuesday morning. All right, so let me share my screen. All right, can everyone see that? Just want to make sure. All right, so state of the market. So first, we want to say that right now we are in what's called a hard market. For the last, before COVID, for let's say the last 10 years prior to that, it was considered a soft market where premiums were low, capacity for insurance carriers were high, and there wasn't as much scrutiny when you renewed your insurance. Due to COVID and other factors, it turned into a hard market. So the question is, what is a hard market? Okay, why are you not moving, Converse? So a hard market is the upswing in a market where premium rates are going up, capacity is downsizing, and this is due to certain factors such as social inflation, where rising cost of insurance due to claims, nuclear payouts from juries. Also, you probably see this in social media, the Me Too movement, because things are being, claims from 20 years ago are on the rise. And then also, one of the biggest things is cyber. Cyber is a leading cause of the hard market with ransomware and cyber extortion and social engineering. So, getting all those fun little phishing emails, texts. This morning, I just got one for Facebook asking me to reset my password because someone was locked out. Yeah, I'm not It's something that is just occurring every day. So with that being said, the carriers are looking to be more in terms of scrutiny when it comes to renewals. They want to make sure that you are doing everything you can to be proactive around risk and insurance. So let's talk about the state of the market. So while premiums are increasing, the market is starting to be stabilized just a little bit. Carriers are reporting more growth, and they're starting to get that appetite of those certain risks. Two of the most significant reasons for price increase is natural disasters, cyber attacks, the uncertainty in the economy, and also geopolitical shocks like the war in Ukraine. So those are causing for some of those rising increases. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, excuse me, the biggest coverage line right now is cyber. In cyber, you're looking at any potential renewal anywhere from 25 up to 100%. We have seen cyber renewals being tripled, quadrupled, just due to the market.
Chris, if I could
Sure.
just say something, I just had a thought as you were talking about the cyber in the market. And, cyber is, relatively speaking, in the context of insurable risk and insurance, that's a new coverage that's evolved, I would say, in the last 10 years. When that first started coming into the market, could get it at a relatively, cheap price and get the coverage if you suffered a cyber. But that, with the amount of these losses and the costs of responding to cyber attacks and the frequency, the coverage has evolved to the extent that we've got carriers who are getting out of that market. And not only have you seen these exponentially premium prices on the cyber coverage, you also have carriers that they will not insure a risk if you haven't met certain protocols, multi-factor authentication, data backup. So the criteria for even being able to secure the coverage is increasing year after year as well. So I just wanted to point that out.
No, thank you for pointing out, and please jump in whenever you see the need. Because, the biggest thing is, especially to our clients, what does the hard market mean? And you kind of touched on that, it's rate increases, it's confusion, it's reduce in capacity, higher deductibles, higher attachments that will, like umbrella that we're about to get into, as well as communication education. You have to know what is happening in the market so that you can prepare early for those renewals, because you don't want it to come as a shock when you get your renewal and they say, well, we're non-renewing you for this coverage, or we're not going to have this coverage in place for you due to the market. Another big topic, other than cyber, that's really been impactful into the market is inflation. And that's really dealing with also property. Property coverage is going up tremendously due to supply chain issues. So where you've probably seen it in the news and social media about the cost of lumber, with lumber and steel and, other things such as companies that are building new facilities, the HVAC is taking 6 to 18 months just to get a new HVAC system. So property value is going up, and you have to remember that when you insure your property, it is not by the amount that you bought it for or that it costs, but more of how much does it cost to replace the building, not by how much it appraised, but how much it costs to replace, and replacement costs are going up. Therefore, the property coverage is going up. Oop. I think I might have skipped a slide. So let's dive into like each kind of coverage. So first we have the casualty. So your casualty is your general liability, business auto. Business auto is probably one of those big drivers in increased coverage due to certain factors, such as, well, the biggest one, and I'm trying to find it, is distracted driving. Distracted driving is a huge concern because everybody wants to be on their cell phones and they're not concentrated on the road. Auto accidents make up 28% of workers' compensation claims over 500,000. So it's back to these nuclear verdicts that juries are paying out a lot of money for an auto claim. I just had a friend who owns a company, one of their trucks, fender bender, and actually of all people hits an insurance agent, 2.2 million in that claim. That can greatly impact a company, especially on their insurance. Most of your coverages are $1 million in coverage. That would exhaust it, and then you have to go into your umbrella. Other things, especially if you are in social services, education, one of the other biggest things is sexual abuse and molestation. We are seeing a lot of exclusions on the policy. Also, that diminished capacity. Usually you get a 3 million aggregate with a 1 million occurrence. A lot of those carriers are not offering those. They are going to 1 million. I have seen even ones at 300,000. But with those types of nuclear verdicts, 300,000 is just not enough. And you know, especially if you're a YMCA, a Boy Scouts, if you're a school, you know, there's opportunity for those to, you know, one claim, and Lisa could probably jump in, one claim can be $1 million in coverage, and then you're exhausted. And then hopefully your umbrella, you have enough coverage from your umbrella to kick in. So sexual molestation and abuse is a big coverage that carriers are either excluding or they are limiting your limits. Lisa, anything around that?
No, you addressed it, but you know, and the theories, it's, you know, behind the schools is, you know, the negligent supervision or the involvement of, you know, from the entity standpoint, in the abuse cases. But these abuse cases right from the start, I mean, they're expensive, and the outcome is, you know, a high figure case on those types of cases. So it's when and the carriers have picked up on that and obviously don't want to assume that, you know, that risk.
All right, moving on to property. So as mentioned before, property is definitely on the rise due to the supply chain costs. You know, now with Hurricane Ian, you know, there are estimated costs of $47 billion. So, you know, think about it, when you have supply chain issues, now all of a sudden, those areas are going to need a lot of those supplies. And if there's not enough supplies to go around and you're getting steel from China, then that puts a big bind on that replacement cost, and costs are going to go up. So, you know, valuation to an underwriter is key. Most of them look at a 5 to 10% inflation. Some of them are going as high as 20. Even with appraisals, appraisals are going up to almost 28% higher than when you first purchased the building. So underwriters are looking at those values, and one of the things you can do is try to work with your broker, with the underwriters, to try to figure out what's that best value for your property, and find ways to offset some of those rising costs. So, and that
Yep.
could be with the, yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, I was going to say with an example, because I just had this come across my desk yesterday with the supply chain. Even it's even affecting, under the auto policy. I've got a customer who got in an auto accident and his car is totaled. Well, no, strike that. It's repairable. It's in the shop. He is concerned because the shop can't get in the repairs. They're on delay due to the supply chain. He's looking at a $15,000 rental bill. And of course, coverage typically under your auto policies, $30 a day up to 30 days. So the supply chain it really does have far-reaching consequences that, we don't even begin to realize till we're actually faced with that situation. And then on vehicles that, our customers that are totaled, you have a hard time getting a replacement vehicle for that totaled vehicle. So the ramifications of this supply chain are staggering, actually, in the context of risks and when you suffer a loss.
Yep. And as well as, due to a decade of being in the soft market, all of a sudden you get a loss, and, those loss ratios start to add up. And that's where rates start to increase, and carriers are being very mindful about, if you have a small fire in your building and the cost for it to replace it, they're increasing those costs. So we're seeing that across the board. All right, moving on to, actually, one is gone. Where is it? Sorry, something's missing. Hold on. Where's my excess? Here we go. Sorry, slide was misplaced. So rounding out with this is umbrella and excess liability. So your umbrella is kind of your underlying coverage to protect your general liability, your business auto, sexual abuse and molestation, professional liability, Ohio stopgap. So it think of it as a reserve line. So if you exhaust the sexual abuse and molestation line, your umbrella will kick in. Now, with that being said, nuclear verdicts continue to impact umbrellas. So with social inflation and litigation has caused more pressure on settlements and defense costs. So the increase in premiums are going up in umbrella, probably looking at anywhere between 10 and 25%. And as you can tell from the chart, from 2014 up to 2022, you saw the spike around the times of COVID. And that's probably when around the Me Too movement was really starting to gain some traction. It's gone down a little bit, but we are seeing a little bit of an upswing with umbrellas. So those are very important, especially if you are covering any type of high risk, such as dealing with kids or working with chemicals. Your umbrella is very important because that will help give you a little bit more peace of mind and support for those other coverages. All right. So now we're going to move on to the executive risk. So a lot of companies, not for profit as well as for profit, these have been some big emerging risks since COVID. These really kind of gained traction in 2022. So with directors and officers, we are seeing increasing pricing as well as demand. Your directors and officers, your rating is buy your assets. So sometimes you can be a victim of your own success. But we're also seeing an uptick in class action lawsuits. So it looks like just 110 across federal and state courts in the first half of 2022 alone, and which was less than 2021. Oh, excuse me. So, that is, your directors and officers is very important, especially even if you are a for-profit, you want to protect the entity, you want to protect your directors, as well as yourself, if you are the business owner. But, especially for nonprofits, this is your bread and butter. This is for you to protect your board members. It also helps with retainment as well as attraction. If you can't protect the financial interest of your board members, then how will you gain more board members when their term is up? And so if there is a lawsuit or a claim brought upon the board, you want to make sure those board members have a peace of mind that they are being protected, not just in the interest of the company, but as well as financial. And especially someone like myself who's been on multiple boards, I want to make sure I'm at ease, and I also want to make sure the company is fully covered. Lisa, any thoughts?
I do, because I handle the D&O for our clients, and a couple things I want to distinguish with this coverage. One, these claims are expensive, but the distinction between the coverage that that is afforded under a D&O policy, we call them, special risk policies, and your standard general liability and auto liability that you may not be aware of is defense costs to defend these litigations. They eat away at your limit of liability. They erode the limit of liability. While in a standard GL or auto case, defense costs are considered a supplementary payment that's incurred by the insurance company. It's not something that is applied towards any sort of retention. So, oftentimes you want to look at their, carriers may offer, and you may be able to get an extra limit of coverage solely for defense, where there's an endorsement that your defense costs don't erode your limit for any judgment or loss paid out on these claims. I have a case right now, and these are expensive. I'm working on a case right now that literally has been, it dates back, the filings first started in 2015, and it is still ongoing today. And we're into the excess layer with the primary. I think we have a primary layer at 2 million. I think it's a 2 million, and we're looking at this. Insured, our client has a 10 million excess. So that just gives you a, put into context that the exposure presented by these types of matters under the D&O.
I have a question.
Mhm.
I've been on multiple boards myself. I know here at the chamber, we have a D&O policy. I know the HCA that I'm on has a D&O, the CIC has a D&O, but there are smaller boards that I wonder if they do. So if it's a small nonprofit, should everybody have a D&O, or only when there's a big financial risk?
No, the entity that I'm talking about is a nonprofit. It's actually a condo association. So you want to, if you're on the board, you want to understand what if there's coverage,
Okay.
and if not, ask the question perhaps why you're not protecting your board members. But the nonprofit D&O, that's a unique coverage, but it is available. There is D&O for nonprofit entities.
Well, okay, it's interesting, and it is a real issue, because I know with the smaller organizations that have boards, when you bring up D&O, you can tell by the blank look on their face that they have no idea what you're talking about. So, okay. So
Yeah.
those board members, including me, are at risk.
Yes, and
Okay.
you know, and in the marketplace, even for a small nonprofit, for example, you know, the D&O coverage is not expensive because it's rated by your assets. So, you know, carriers understand that not every directors and officers coverage is going to be 15 board members with a 10 million revenue organization. They understand there are the smaller ones, and we've seen that through our clients. You know, I have some small nonprofits that have maybe 5 board members,
Right.
but the coverage is very affordable. And my thing to them would be, I'd rather pay $1,000 than to go through a claim that's going to cost you 15,000. You know, it's the same kind of conversation we have with cyber. Do you invest in a couple $1,000s into a cyber policy, or do you take the chance of being hit with 150,000 social engineering or ransomware? You know, you have to look at the cost of risk versus, you know, making sure that you're safe and secure. And as a board member, you don't want to be financially impacted by that as well, because if you're in part of making that decision, then you are part of that claim. So that's why I like to look at every D&O on those boards for myself, because I want to make sure that my investment goes towards the organization, not towards a lawsuit.
Okay, so I have another question. I know you're not attorneys, but I'm going to throw this out there. So, because I'm sure you've seen every kind of case, because basically anything that could go wrong at an organization, whether it's financial or harassment or sexual abuse or whatever, the board is ultimately responsible, correct? I mean, could be in a lawsuit if they allowed it to happen. Like if they, you know, if somebody could prove, even if they couldn't prove, it could go on for years, whether or not the board was aware or whatever. So, I mean, doesn't that kind of increase the need for something like this?
No, what you're getting into is the type of claim that's set forth, and
Okay.
different policies and coverages respond depending on the allegations.
Okay.
And, you know, like, you know, a harassment falls under, if it's an employee or even a third party, falls under an employment. We call it like a management liability policy, and it will have D&O coverage,
Mhm.
employment practices coverage, fiduciary coverage. So it
Okay.
really depends on the nature of the allegation. And when all else fails, when we get allegations in, we call the D&O kind of the catch-all. When a claim doesn't fit into any other insuring agreement or policy, let's look at the D&O, because guess what? The D&O covers an entity and individuals for any wrongful acts.
Okay.
And then you got to get down to what's the definition of wrongful act, and then there's
Right.
exclusions. But we, in the claims world, we talk about the D&O as the catch-all if
Okay.
the claim doesn't fit neatly into another policy, if that makes sense.
So it really is your safety net.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'll shut up. Back to your presentation.
No, it's great. I mean, anyone who has a question, please stop us. You know, this is supposed to be a conversation. We don't feel like we want to be just presenting, but any question is welcomed. Fiduciary, I'm really not going to touch much. That it's just, you know, basically if you hire a third-party administrator to, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? To manage your 401k, and they lose the money, your fiduciary coverage will cover you from the employees coming back and saying, hey, you picked this administrator, they were horrible, this plan was wrong, so therefore it falls on you. So we are seeing rates increase anywhere from 5 to up to 20%, and our increase in premiums and retentions will continue to correct the historically low levels. So just for the sake of time, we're gonna kind of move on. We want to make sure that we get through everything. Employment practices, as Lisa just mentioned, we're seeing an increase really in discrimination, harassment. Those are really increasing right now, and that's due to the Me Too movement. And the cost to defend those pricing is starting to increase, and therefore premium increases have been lessened a little bit this year. Wage and hour, that is another rising emerging risk, where if you hire 2 people, same position, maybe one's been with the company for 5 years, the one has been with them for a month, but they're making more. That is starting to be another trend. And especially, and basically just with also companies that are growing, when you grow a company, then there could be an increase in a claim, because the more employees you have, the more opportunities. So it's one of those coverages that some companies don't have. Even if you have maybe less than 15 employees, you really need to have this coverage in place. And really, to be honest, especially with the discrimination and harassment, that is on the rise. And you want to make sure that you're protecting your employees as well as the entity. Lisa, any thoughts?
Yeah, I always like to weigh in when we talk about the employment practices, is that even if you have that coverage, something to recognize is I find that our clients don't necessarily, when a matter comes in, doesn't necessarily believe it is a claim to be submitted. For instance, under an employment practices coverage, and the same for the D&O, a claim is defined, and it goes beyond just a lawsuit. A claim under an employment practices that triggers your coverage is an administrative charge by an EEOC. It is a claim for monetary or non-monetary damages, whether it's being made by the employee or third party or through an attorney representation letter. It can be a request for a statute of limitations. So it's important that when you receive any communication from an employee or a third party pertaining to an alleged wrongful act of discrimination, wrongful termination, you want to run that past your broker to determine if it needs to be submitted to the carrier for handling. Because this coverage, it's a claims made coverage, and the coverage trigger is reported the date the claim is made against the company. So the timing and reporting of these claims is important. I just want to bring that up because it's something that I come across quite frequently as I field calls for our clients on establishing for them of what meets a claim and if we need to get it reported to the carrier. And oftentimes I come across, unfortunately, where EEOC or OCR charges didn't realize it's a claim and it hasn't been reported to the carrier, and that defending that and getting outside counsel to work with you would have otherwise been afforded under the policy. Other claims that are driving the employment is also COVID. I see claims for wrongful termination for employees who are not conforming or abiding by, the mandate for a COVID vaccine. At least that's what they're alleging. So that's also driving, claims under employment practices.
Thank you, Lisa. Moving on with crime. So crime, the biggest risk in crime right now is social engineering. So social engineering is the theft of money. So you probably have received an email, maybe it was from the CFO or the business owner that said, hey, the bank just changed, we just changed our account number. Here's the new account number. Can you change this in the system and send $5,000 to XYZ company. You might get those fun phone calls where they ask you, hey, your computer has a virus. We need you to go buy 10 eBay cards and give us the number of 500. So with that rise in social engineering, a lot of carriers are not giving either that coverage or they are minimizing the limits. Typically, you could get up to 250,000 on a social engineering. A lot of carriers are pushing back. They might give you 50 to 100,000. If I'm correct, and maybe I might be spitballing, Lisa, you can correct me. I want to say typically an average social engineering might be 150,000 in a claim. We actually had someone client who had 170,000 social engineering claim, and luckily we had some coverage of 250, so that was covered. But I know those claims probably differ in terms of price.
Well, the highest I've had is 2 million.
Oof.
And that was on just communication by texting, no verification. It's critically important to have a callback verification and not accept a change in request simply through email. And I'll tell you why. These hackers, it used to be when you receive the social engineerings were generated from a phishing email. You just didn't catch that the email that you were communicating wasn't the correct email. You thought you were communicating with the individual. Today, what it's evolved into is these hackers are getting into the systems by an email compromise account. They're changing forwarding rules, and you think you're communicating with a legitimate person. So, you're dealing with your customer, you're dealing with your supplier. It's the email chain is legitimate, okay? And you proceed with that transfer of money, but all it may have taken or would have taken was a call to verify that they actually requested the change. And so oftentimes, unfortunately, that doesn't happen. You don't have the established protocols for the change request.
Or it's, you just have a bad day and someone clicks a link and not thinking and things happen. So you want to be safe. And then with cryptocurrency, because that's been getting more and more popular, we're seeing more exclusions on policies due to that. So will that change in the future? Just depends on how cryptocurrency evolves into the economy. And now always the fun topic, cyber. So that is, as we mentioned earlier, that is the coverage that is getting the most attention in terms of increases. We're seeing anywhere from, like I said, 25 up to 100, maybe even higher than that. I heard of one that was 400%. Underwriters are just being very cautious. They're being more scrutinized. You can tell by the renewal applications, and also it's about your cyber hygiene. It's about how do you make sure that you have the right protocols and processes with your IT cybersecurity in place. Multi-factor authentication is the biggest thing. And now it's not just on your email, but it's also on your phone if you have email. It's privileged accounts. There's a lot of factors that are now going into to make sure that you not only just renew your cyber insurance, but also to make sure you actually get it. There are a lot of companies that are getting non-renewed due to poor controls that are in place. We actually work with a company called BitSight, and BitSight is much like a personal credit score, but it gives you a score based on your cyber hygiene. So they access your portals and they see, how likely is it for you to have a breach or occurrence and to be cyber hacked. And if you are in the low spectrum of that of the score, then that is something that you really need to have a conversation with your IT, either if you have it internal or external. The other thing is about the cloud service. A lot of companies say, oh, well, all my data is in the cloud. Well, just because it's in the cloud doesn't mean that it is fully protected, and there's usually hold harmless agreements within that that document or that contract that says that if something is to occur, you want to make sure that you're protected on your end, and it's not. And we've had cloud service companies been breached, and some major ones. So that is something that regardless, you want to make sure that you're protecting your data, because the biggest thing to the cyber criminals, it's not how much they can get out of you, but how much is your data worth to you? That is the big question. And of course, I want Lisa to chime in, because this is one of her favorite topics.
Yeah, cyber also provide the oversight on the cyber for our clients. And from, speaking from a claim standpoint, when you're hit with a ransomware attack and where a fraudster has, taken down your systems, that's extremely stressful. And your goal is to restore your operations. And that's where the benefit of having your cyber coverage and an agent that will work with you in response to the attack. When your system goes down, if you have a cyber policy, it's so important. Do you have your policy information? So often, when the systems are down, our clients don't have access even to their cyber policy to know who to call. That's why you call over to Oswald. We get the claim reported. The cyber carriers require approved vendors to respond to these ransomware attacks. That includes a coordination of efforts between legal counsel to determine if the hacker has infiltrated any PII or PHI information that requires notification to affected individuals. It involves an IT forensics firm outside of your internal or third-party IT provider to investigate the origin and source of the breach. If you're dealing with a ransom demand, the forensics and breach counsel coordinate, the providers that negotiate with these threat actors. Do you know that when you're under a ransomware attack, it's very important to file an IC3 report with the FBI on their website. I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but the point is these cybers they're very involved, and it's a stressful situation. And the cyber coverage is a critical component in bringing a response team together for you in order to get you back up and running, your operation running. And it covers a multifaceted of costs, the legal costs, the remediation costs, the recovery efforts, notification to individuals if their PII was accessed, private information, credit monitoring. There's so many components to the cyber policy that you may not appreciate or have knowledge of, because this isn't your space, right? You need to focus on your business. And without this coverage, you are exponentially magnifying, a very stressful situation, and they're costly. An initial response to even an attack that you can get through and restore your operations in a couple days, you're probably looking at forensics and legal costs, $20,000 to $30,000, to get that, go through that process, but it's very costly.
And that's why having a cyber policy instead of paying for all those services outside of it is, to me, the ROI. I'd rather pay $3,000 for a cyber policy than to pay $30,000 to use those outside sources of resources. All right. So before we get to our recommendations, is there any questions from the audience that maybe some we didn't touch on, or a coverage that you might want to hear about?
I don't think we've got anything right now, Chris.
Okay. All right. So, what can you do in terms of all these emerging risk and everything? On the casualty side, it's really just, and I'll kind of lump this all together. It's more of it's preparedness. You want to start early. I know some start a couple months before the renewal. You want to start early, and you want to be more proactive around risk to say, what are some of the things that you can do, and you work with your broker. What are some of the things you can do to be more proactive around risk, to avoid these high increased premiums? You want to make sure, if you have sexual abuse coverage, do you have an incident plan in place? Do you have the protocols and procedures? Are you making sure you're screening your employees? Or you have safety protocols in place? It's things like that. With that, then you don't have to worry about trying to get a $10 million umbrella. You can function with a 3 to 5 million. Basically, it's also knowing what your risks are. If you can understand about your business auto, your GL, your general liability, your property, if you know about those coverages and you understand what's within your policy, then you can be more proactive around managing that risk. And with your property, right now, is the biggest thing is, make sure that, that your valuations, what would it cost to replace your building? And by doing that, then you can understand what value to insure the property at. So if you have a number that's been there for the last 5 years on your policy, if your building, you think it's worth $1 million back in 2016, it might be worth 2.2 million to replace today. So you want to make sure that you are updating those values, not just property, but your business personal property, as well as your business income. Those are very important to make sure that you are continually updating those year over year due to the market. And then on the executive risk side, you want to start, once again, you want to start your renewal process as early as possible. Cyber, you want to start 6 months because you want to make sure that you are touching all the protocols and procedures in places to make sure that you have the best cyber hygiene for your company, because that is going to affect your premium dollars for your cyber renewal. You want to make sure that you have phishing exercises and you are testing your employees to be on the lookout. These actors are getting smarter and smarter, and emails are looking almost like the real thing. And if you're not paying attention, there could be one digit off or one letter off that can determine whether that is a real email or that is a phishing email. And also just keep in mind of your industry. Certain industries have certain risk to it: construction, education, nonprofit. So you want to make sure that you know about those risks and how to mitigate it. Lisa, any thoughts?
I think you covered it in the wrap up there, just giving some thought here.
Make sure I didn't miss anything.
Yeah, and again, I addressed this earlier, but the last sentence of the executive risk is, and it's important to reiterate, extremely important to know the provisions of your policy with respect to claims reporting, because it's very easy if you don't recognize what a claim is and what triggers reporting to your insurance company, you are positioning yourself to jeopardize coverage under the policy for late reporting. That is a risk and something that I do see under the executive risk coverages. And what you want is we want our clients, we want the policies to respond in the manner that they should.
That's great. Yeah. So in wrapping up, how do you avoid hitting that dead end? It's just knowing what coverages you have within your policy. How does it equate to the operations of your company, and know about what emerging risks are happening in your industry, because the more that you're aware, the more proactive instead of being reactive. And that's what the carriers are looking for. They're looking for companies that are proactive around risk, and with that increases your risk profile with them, and that can also leverage your premium dollars to where you can get the best coverage and the most cost-effective policy. If you have a business, if you have a fleet of cars, if you're not being proactive around safety, that can impact your premium. And as well as cyber, the more you do with cyber, the better your premium and getting a renewal is going to happen. So it's really working with the relationship of your broker as well as increasing the relationship of your carriers. And doing that, you can avoid hitting that dead end and continue. And once you ride this wave of the hard market and we get back to a soft market, things will be on the up and up. So we're hoping that it happens within the next, I'd say 24 months, where I think we're very positive to see an upswing out of this hard market and get back into some form of normalcy. So, but that concludes our coffee and conversation around risk insurance. Hopefully we didn't bore you too much, but feel free, here's my contact information. If you have any questions or anything you want to hear or anything pertaining to your industry, please feel free to reach out.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris and Lisa. That's a lot of great information there. I think there might be a couple topics we can probably extrapolate for later too. So we appreciate you taking your time to be on. We will be back on coffee in 2 weeks. So that'll be October 25th. It's Tuesday from 9 to 10 on Zoom. So we hope you join us, and we will see you all in a few weeks. Thank you all again.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.